Good evening and thank you for joining CBS19 News at 6.
Tonight on CBS19 News at 11.
Good morning, Charlottesville. I'm Bo Sykes. Thank you for joining.
Local news to me means community.
I think it's important because it's community driven. Like, that sounds corny, but it really isn't.
We're not the TV station that kind of sits back.
We're going to be here focusing on your neighborhood and working to keep you and your property safe. And I think that there's no other better way to get that through media than through local television.
And it's my community. I live here too. I'm part of this community. So I want to know what's happening just as much as my friends and my neighbors do. So my day starts at 2:30. That's when the first alarm goes off. I usually roll out of bed around 2:45 or so, and I'm at the station here at 3:30. We're on the air at 4:30, and during that gap from 3:30 to 4:30, we're kind of tweaking the show, rewriting scripts, doing radio news updates. A newsroom has multiple moving parts, and there are different people assigned to do different things.
Our day-to-day is pretty busy. We do 9.5 hours of news a day, which I know when we first started out, we certainly weren't doing that kind of news.
I don't know if the community knows, like, everything's out of one building. We have CBS, ABC, Fox, even MeTV, ION.
From 4:30 to 9, we're on the air. GMC for CBS and then GMC on Fox.
After that, we have a newsroom meeting at 10 a.m. with the Dayside folks. We talk to the morning show folks. Did anything new come up? Did anything happen? Here's what we need to do today. Here's what our plan is for today. And then we'll start executing that for the noon, the 4, the 5, and the 6. In the afternoon, our afternoon crew comes in. We have another meeting. And then our 4 o'clock news starts, and we're going till 6:30. And then we do it all again at 10 and 11.
It's 5:57, 44 degrees outside on this Friday, February 24th. Don't go away. You're watching Good Morning Charlottesville.
So I started here in June of 2005 with the anticipation of launching a morning show, which we did. Jorma started right after I did and helped to launch the morning show with me. So August 12th, 2005, the two of us said, let's do this. We're ready to go.
Bo and I, we didn't have gray hair. Now we do. That was a long time ago.
Starting a show from scratch, you just don't do that in this industry very often. And you don't usually launch shows because the shows are already on the air.
You know, there was problems, there was struggles. Our set didn't look good. All this stuff we eventually ironed out, and we had a good team.
So we spent the months leading up to that kind of preparing and just figuring out how we wanted the show to look on TV.
The first Good Morning Charlottesville, those graphics are odd. This is when you cut to B-roll of the first Good Morning Charlottesville.
Live from the Charlottesville Newsplex, this is Good Morning Charlottesville.
Anytime you launch a new show, it's kind of tough, right? Literally a month before, or a couple of months before we launched Good Morning Charlottesville, we were having to run our station out of a trailer as they set up the building out on 2nd Street where we were for a while, you know? So it was being operated out of a trailer.
The competition in town at the time had a 5:30 to 7 a.m. morning newscast. And they caught wind that we were going to launch on August 15th, which was a Monday.
Our news director at the time, Jeremy Settle, was like, let's get a jump start on our competition, 29. So we started at 4:55.
So, yeah, I mean, it was competitive. I was a lot younger back then, too, so I had the energy, I guess. But, it was a very competitive stance. It was a market that had only had one television station for a long time, and we were the scrappy upstart, which was good because it gave us, it gave Charlottesville, really, a second voice in journalism and another place to turn for news. And we saw a lot of exponential growth in those early years just because, hey, we were something new, we were something different. But at the time, yeah, it was competitive, and we were scrappy, we were hungry, and we wanted to prove a point. And so something like the Good Morning Charlottesville launch, we had been in real-time rehearsals for 2 weeks anyway, so it really wasn't that big of a leap. I just went to the GM the day before. I said, hey, I have an idea. I said, the rehearsals have been going great. What if we just launched early and we'll be the first station in Charlottesville to start news at 5 a.m. And sure enough, got the green light, and that's what happened.
And as the competition grew, they're like, okay, then we're going on at 4:30 a.m. And we're like, okay, then we're going on at 4:30 a.m. too.
Plan to rescan so we don't disappear.
Land to rescan.
Going digital was a learning experience for everyone. There was so much preparation in that because we had to change all the equipment. Everything we had was for standard 4x3.
Yeah, that was a different world. It's crazy now to see 4x3 video anywhere. It's just like, what were we doing? And it looks bad, everything's grainy, you don't really see what's going on. But seeing the advancement in technology as fast as it has happened has been amazing.
Internally, we had to figure out, what do we need to do? We had to switch out all the cameras, all new switchers, everything had to be brand new. We had to change the way the set looked because it was built for basically a 4x3, kind of a square looking image.
It's funny because we used to run promos like now in HD, now that's everybody. It's just standard.
And then the external messaging was just as confusing because people had to go buy these digital converter boxes. So we had all kinds of promos that were telling people like, look, on this date at this time, you need to rescan your TV using the new digital converter boxes.
Weeks and months we were doing this the whole time. And then we flipped the switch and it just sort of worked, from what I remember.
And at the time it was very confusing for everyone. But it happened and here we are now in HD.
Our new studio is great. The new monitor is fantastic. We can put whatever we want in that big monitor behind the set. We can change the lighting around the set, which really kind of changes the tone. We've got those different side monitors where we can put different reporters, we can put different graphics. So we can really change things around a lot. Another big difference is our newsroom here. I mean, we're out of the dungeon at the X building. It's a nice bright space. We've got lots of windows. We've come a long way.
Yeah, we started out on 2nd Street. It was an old carpet warehouse.
We were basically in a converted warehouse room that was partitioned into studio parts.
At the time, we kind of had to throw things together to get ourselves on air.
At the time, we had 2 studios. We had one for CBS. At the time, we also had a second studio of which we were doing newscasts for our ABC affiliate at 7 o'clock.
Lighting was bad, cameras weren't good, and we didn't really have the resources provided to us.
The first round of video servers had a lot of issues. By the time we got all of our newscasts launched, we were doing a considerable amount of news across 3 television stations. And so we needed something more robust than it was originally spec'd out for. We got it, and it really helped us along the way.
Our company, Lockwood, made a big investment in this station. We have top-of-the-line technology. We have the same graphic system that ESPN uses. We have a monitor that you can route several different ways, cutting-edge system as far as master control and directing. They put the money in, which is, to be commended.
I always used to joke, whether you watch our newscast or someone else's newscast, you're welcome. Because without us, there was no competition. And when there's no competition, you only do what you have to. When there's competition, you suddenly have to work harder. So whether it's us working hard or maybe another group working hard, the existence of CBS19 raised the level of competition in the marketplace. There is no doubt.
The way the news business works a lot of times is we're everybody's first job. We hire a lot of folks that are right out of college. They come here and they learn for a couple years and then they go to their next step. And one of the things I always joke with people is not that you're ever going to leave me, but in your next job, this would be a really great skill for you to have. It's actually one of the things I really do like about working here is to know that we played a big part in so many people's careers starting off. I love looking at our list of where former CBS19 people have ended up in their careers, and that always makes me happy to know that we kind of played a role in some of that.
I'm Courtney Stewart. I am the host of Charlottesville Right Now on WINA and the co-creator of Smalltown Big Crime podcast.
My name is Rachel Ryan. I'm the former anchor of CBS19 News, and now I am the co-creator of Smalltown Big Crime podcast.
CBS19 was my first job on air. I had been interviewed on TV shows like Dateline for some of the stories I had written, but it's very different to be interviewed than to be a presenter. And I underestimated that challenge, and I overestimated my own abilities. And so there was this very steep learning curve, and it was all happening on live television.
Courtney Stewart was an aggressive reporter, and she was a fascinating person too, because she would come to that morning meeting every weekday and say, okay, I'm talking to this person, I'm talking to this person, I'm talking to that person.
I had always looked up to her and read The Hook and read her articles and always wanted to talk to her at press conferences because I just thought she was an amazing journalist, an amazing writer.
Whatever story sort of struck my fancy, if I could make an argument for it, and a lot of the stuff I cover tends to be sort of dark or, it's crime, it's criminal justice related stuff, but I got to do a number of much lighter stories, and one came out of an argument I had with a friend over how you turn left at a green light, whether you can go into the intersection and wait, or whether you have to wait behind the line. I did a whole story on the proper way to turn left at a green light, and
it's going out into the intersection, isn't it?
yes, well, that was my argument.
Were you right?
Yes, I was right, but the police said they would rather that you wait behind the line, and you are not allowed to block the intersection. But I got to do lighthearted stories and
News you can use.
News you can use, and it was fun.
We started the podcast in 2019. We started releasing episodes. It had been an idea of mine after I left CBS19. I became a mom, and the schedule was just really hard, and so I missed reporting, I missed being a journalist, but I needed a more flexible schedule, and I also missed having really good colleagues that I enjoyed spending time with. So I actually asked Courtney and Jacqueline Piermarini, who also worked at the TV station, if they would be interested in doing a long-form podcast with me, and we decided that true crime was the way to go for a podcast. And I think the way that CBS19 influenced the podcast is that the Jens Soring case was my very first story as a reporter at the station. I was down in Buckingham interviewing him while Jens Soring was in prison, and it was back in 2010 or 2011. And so to think here we are so many years later, that story was really important and remained important until we started the podcast.
Charlottesville is a small market. It's a small town, but big news happens here. It is the most unique small market in the country, I believe.
Charlottesville is a town that punches above its weight class.
We are often shoulder to shoulder with national news correspondents. We have very educated, demanding viewers who demand a lot of their local news. And at CBS19, I believe we deliver.
The people we go to school with, the people we go to church with, the people we go to the grocery store with. Our job is to serve those people. And I sort of learned that ethic on the job at my first TV station. These are the things that we are supposed to do, and I think CBS19 has always done that, and I'm proud to be a part of it.
Some places over 2 feet of snow.
Probably the biggest moment that I remember in my years at the station so far, the holiday punch, the snowstorms of 2009 and 2010.
Holiday Punch was a massive snowstorm that hit right before Christmas. It was a Friday afternoon.
Of course, it began with the first one on December 17th and 18th, and then we had 2 subsequent storms that all collectively led to our snowiest winter on record in Charlottesville.
Sliding on the roads.
It seemed like it would never stop, and it got to the point where we were giving the snowstorms internally different names.
Some folks stayed at the station that night. Some of us just crashed at a friend's house as close as we possibly could. So we went wall-to-wall coverage from 7 until basically NBC 29 went off the air. Then we stayed on the air a little bit longer, and then we went off the air just because we weren't, that's what you got to do, right? And so John Rogers and I stood out by the side of the road for 8 or 9 hours doing live shots, waiting for plows to come by. Bo was anchoring in the studio with Jim Hanchett, who was our news director at the time.
The do's and don'ts of driving in the snow.
And just as the roads were clear and people were starting to move out into the community again, another snowstorm came. And here we were back on the air with hours and hours of coverage. And we redid that multiple times during that winter. And come to find out, most snow we've ever had. And that was definitely a memorable time for me.
That was the time that on the East Coast, the entire East Coast, Charlottesville got the most snow out of anybody. And it was around 2 feet, depending on where you were. And everybody thought that storm was going to really start at about 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, but it started at about 4. Snow is also a really great thing to cover because it affects everybody. It's really visual, but usually it's not too severe. You know what I mean? Like it's not necessarily always bad news. It was really one of those, the entire team's pulling in the same direction kind of moments. It was just in hindsight, it was a really great moment for the station.
And this just into CBS 19 News. Breaking news, Louisa County is issuing a state of emergency after a fire in the county is now prompting evacuations.
I think teamwork's a huge role. You can just look back in March where we had a really dry day and all of a sudden 2 o'clock in the afternoon, there were 0 fires in Central Virginia. By 3:15, there were 7 fires in Central Virginia.
The fire jumped multiple barriers and started to encroach on even more homes in the area.
And so we had Alexia was live, like literally at a fire line, 8 feet from the fire.
CBS 19's Alexia Williams live now with more on that. Alexia, a lot going on. What can you tell us?
Garrett was out where they had to evacuate a town in Louisa County.
If you live in that area, evacuate your home for safety until further notice.
We had multiple live shots going. Some of our producers stayed late. I think without teamwork, none of that was possible.
You can't do it without a team. It's too much for one person to single-handedly do.
We went from 0 to 100 miles an hour in about an hour. It was a pretty intense period of 3 to 4 hours, but everybody worked together and everybody was pulling in the same direction, and we did some great stuff.
Showing some of the bigger hot spots around the area, and you notice how there are 3. I think local television is still very relevant because it gives you things that are happening in your neighborhood down to your city block. Certainly bigger forms of media aren't going to focus on the micro scale of which local news does.
Even in a world of the internet, I still think television is the single greatest communication medium ever devised by man.
We're going to be here focusing on your neighborhood and working to keep you and your property safe and tell you what you need to do to stay safe.
During the pandemic in 2020, when everything kicked off and everything shut down, and as journalists, we were one of the few people who were allowed to be out and about because that's how important our job was.
We're still here for you every evening and every night.
Our neighbors were trusting us, our parents were trusting us, and so that really solidified to me how important our job was and how seriously we needed to take it.
Good journalism is hard to define. In a lot of ways, it's sort of that thing, you know it when you see it. One of the absolute requirements of journalism has got to be to give people the power to govern themselves. And the only way to do that is for them to know what's going on.
I was fascinated by the ability to tell a whole bunch of people something with just one message. And I think that's kind of why I wanted to get into this industry. I thought it was fascinating to research something, to learn something for myself, and then to relay that information to a whole crowd of people.
Today with the explosion of social media and the growth of all the other platforms that people can produce content for, I think it's a lot more splintered than it was back then. Back then, you still needed to really have the television station to tell good, compelling news through video storytelling. Everybody who does get into news, they realize either sooner or later that it is a calling, and what we do is so important.
I got started in news because I was a junior in high school and I took a public speaking class, and it came really naturally to me. It was something I enjoyed. I liked the storytelling aspect of it. And afterwards the teacher said, if this is something you enjoy, the storytelling, the getting information and the sharing it with others, journalism might be a good career for you. I was never that guy that, I always knew I wanted to grow up and be a journalist or be on TV. I took a class in high school, and that's what really kind of got everything started for me.
If you talk to anyone who's a meteorologist, be in television or whatever, I would say about 99.9% of the time, every one of those people has experienced one event weather-wise that is the inspiration for them becoming a meteorologist. When I was 5 years old, we took a family vacation to Mount Washington, New Hampshire, which is the site of, at the time, the world's fastest surface recorded wind gust. The tornado outbreak in Pennsylvania of May 31st, 1985, because one of the tornadoes went just north of my grandparents' house. And I remember a tornado in June of 1989 in York County. While I was not directly impacted by it, I remember the green-yellow sky that accompanied strong storms and tornadoes on occasion, and I'll never forget what that sky looked like that day. As a child, I was always one of those kids who always asked why. Why is it sunny one day and rainy and colder the next day? Where does snow come from? Why can't I go outside and play in the rain? Why is it raining? So that curiosity also was a big catalyst in me becoming a meteorologist as I got older.
This industry has a lot of people moving around. A lot of people start off in a small market like Charlottesville, work up to a medium-sized market, and then to a big market. Some go to their home market, whatever it may be. Everyone's got their own path.
The best and worst things about working in small market television, you do bond with people quickly. It's not like the police or the military That's true trauma. But we do trauma bond. There's a lot of, you go through some rough situations together. You see some things you don't want to see. And so you become like fast friends. And, you get to know these co-workers, they become friends, and then you get to know their families, their friends, even their pets. But because of better opportunities and, small market, you want to grow, you need to make more money, you need to expand your career, completely understandable. And the worst thing is most of the time, these friends leave.
That's part of what you sign up for when you do TV news. And for CBS19, it is often a first stop for folks. And so you don't have, other than where you maybe grew up or went to college, you don't have a lot of other places to compare it to. What brings us together as news people a lot of times too is just that we're all from different places. There are some people who have been part of a community their entire lives, and they're a big asset to the television station. But then there are those of us too who have moved around quite a bit. And so that makes it brings a different voice to the newsroom.
For me, I thought I would just do a couple years here and head back down to Florida, but the longer I stayed here, the longer I am here, the more I realize how much I love this community. And this just became my home. I didn't need to move all around and bounce around from city to city with the hopes of going back home. I made this my home, and I'm proud to say I love Charlottesville.
One of the things I love about CBS19 is that there are people who are still there today who have been there for such a long time. And I think that having a combination, that is a form of diversity, people who have been in a community a long time who can then mentor. And I'm thinking of, Dan and Bo.
Bo, Dan, and Travis all being with CBS19 for so long, it's just truly an asset. It's an asset for the station and an asset for the community to have people like them who care and can connect and understand so well. They know what matters. They know what matters to the audience. They know what matters to the people of Charlottesville. And the news in Charlottesville is so different than in a lot of places in a good way, because there isn't a lot of the negativity and the crime that you see in so many other places. So it really helps you become a better mirror for the community you serve.
I think we've done a lot in our community, whether it's partnering with the Alzheimer's Association, the Dogwood Parade. One thing to be particularly proud of is the Salvation Army Telethon.
I think one of the coolest things I've been able to be involved with is the Salvation Army Telethon.
A lot of folks calling in and helping us raise the $150,000.
That was started by Salvation Army board member and former general manager here, Jay Barton.
I came in and I said, guys, my gut is that we should do a telethon. But before we say yes to this, you got to recognize that once we say yes, we've got to do this forever, essentially.
Over 10 years that we've done the telethon now,
we've raised over $1 million for people that need it. That's the coolest thing.
It is going to help us to continue the services that we provide every day.
All that money stays right here in the Charlottesville community, and it's evolved into the largest fundraiser for the local Salvation Army every single year.
Just extraordinarily proud that we took an idea and made it real. And I think that's the beauty of what local TV is. I love the fact that our station invested in our community, not just with our time, not just with running promos and PSAs to help nonprofit organizations in the marketplace, which we do, but that we would roll up our sleeves and we would actually get out there and do the work next to the people who needed it.
Thank you from CBS19 Stockings.
The station has always had the motto, community counts. And for me, that's especially true with the segment that I do weekly. It's community counts. And it launched way back when. And to date, we've done 900 plus interviews during community counts. And I'm proud that it's still going.
I think it's special because CBS19 has provided the news for Charlottesville and Central Virginia in a fair, disciplined, and unpretentious way. And I think that we've done it in a way that we've established wonderful community relationships with the people that make the community what it is. And I feel that it's also important to note that we have gotten out in the community and have been involved in the community as much as we have, be it with events like Patriotism in the Park, the Dogwood Festival Parade, the Salvation Army Telethon. There's so many events that we've had over the years that have really seen an integration of CBS19 with the community. And I think that has helped us establish a very good way of reporting what's going on in the community.
I've always been proud of that, and I think that that's a piece of the DNA of who CBS19 is.
You know, 20 years is a long time to serve the community, and CBS 19 has made such a difference. The quality of character of the people that CBS 19 has brought in who have worked here over those 20 years, those people have made an impact on this community certainly as well.
I think one of the great things about CBS 19 in Charlottesville can be seen through how fired up people are to come back.
The closest thing I can tell you, it's like the first time you fall in love. That's what it felt like to work at the station. So everything, almost every memory is kind of magical.
To know that we played a big part in so many people's careers, the fact that so many people look back at their time here fondly really makes me happy.
I know in an area like Charlottesville where it is treated as a tight-knit community where personal relationships are highly valued, I'm very happy that we as a station are able to be a part of those personal relationships and hope that we can do so for many more years to come.
You want me to look into the camera?
You can if you want to.
That's a wrap.